Do you know about the little boy who grew up in Flint, Michigan and dreamed of becoming a professional baseball player? You know that story? He loved playing baseball. It was his passion. And he grew up and he spent hours pitching the baseball over and over and over and over again because he was so passionate about it, and he had this vision that one day he would pitch in the major leagues. The challenge for this young man was that he didn't have a right hand. So he would wear his glove under his arm. He would pitch the ball, put the glove back on to be able to field. And the awesome thing about this story, which is a real story, is that this young man, whose name is Jim Abbott, maybe you've heard of him now that I'm telling this story. Jim Abbott played at the highest level of baseball possible. He played for the New York Yankees. In fact, in 1993, Jim Abbott pitched a no-hitter. And I heard this story over a decade ago. I heard about Jim Abbott and his story of overcoming this challenge when I was at a basketball camp. And ever since that day that I heard that story, I was completely inspired by it. And I'm always reminded, it always stays in the back of my head, and I'm always reminded every time I come up to a challenge in my life or a situation where I think, I've got this huge dream, I've got these big goals, but you know what, there's some challenges, and there's this one thing that's not perfect, or this one issue that I'm running into, and I don't think I have this particular skill or this particular intelligence level in this specific area. And I start to make excuses in my head. And when I start to make those excuses, I just remind myself of Jim Abbott, and I ask myself this question that maybe you want to ask yourself anytime you come up to some perceived barrier or challenge as you're pursuing your goals. Ask yourself this question. Think about Jim Abbott and the things he overcame to become a professional baseball player at the highest level possible, with what most people would consider a challenge that would be impossible to overcome in order to play in the Major League Baseball. So ask yourself, and I've tried this for me, I think about Jim Abbott and I ask myself, is this a real excuse or just a BS one that you're making up because you want to feel sorry for yourself and think that it's a little bit tough, so maybe you shouldn't pursue this goal, maybe you shouldn't go after the dream that you have? So think about that next time you bump up into a challenge, next time you think or perceive in your mind that there's something that may potentially hold you back from going after and achieving the goals that you have set for yourself. Think about different stories of people who have overcome seemingly impossible odds, like Jim Abbott, and ask yourself if you're making up a real excuse. Is it something that you literally can never overcome? Or is it just a BS excuse? Because even problems or issues or challenges that might seem extreme and darn near impossible to overcome, there's got to be someone out there that you can model and say to yourself, he did it or she did it. Why can't I? And when you really contrast your challenges to those of other people out there who've overcome and achieved, it's been the case in my life, and maybe it is with you too. I start to recognize that the challenges I'm facing are not so big. So ask yourself, when you're faced with something, is it a real challenge? Is it a real issue? Maybe it is, but can you overcome it? And I'm willing to bet in most cases you can. So allow yourself to recognize the opportunity that you have with all the skills that you have, all the intelligence that you have, all the potential you have to garner the resources you need to go out and make it happen. And believe in the possibilities, because there are people out there who struggle with way more difficult things when we recognize the contrast and they still make it happen. Have fun. Be awesome.